Welcome to this live video feed. Hoping you're very well. Try and keep the camera steady so we don't always get too dizzy. I'm going to get dizzy looking at it. This is an interesting one, and of course, this is something that we often don't pay too much attention to. We don't really get. How can we express in a particular way? Why do we express in a particular way? Why do we have ourselves present in a particular way, as opposed to potentially holding back? Why do we retract or repel? Or why do we move forward? Or why do we pull back? What does this actually mean? It's interesting, when we view a child or a baby cry or throw a tantrum or get deeply emotional and get really into the emotions that they are feeling, get into really deeply present to what they are experiencing, they can only actually do that if they feel safe. At some level within their being, they feel connected. They feel safe enough to express that fullness, to really push the boundaries of what that may look like and what that may feel like. And adult relationships are no different. Our adult relationships are very much the same, where we can only really express the fullness of who we are. We can only really go deep into expression and into understanding ourselves and showing the world who we are when we feel safe. When we feel safe enough, comfortable enough to be ourselves, to actually express what it is that we wish to express, our truth. And we forget this sometimes. So we forget that there's this this almost anomaly in extreme expression. And it's an oxymoron almost, because we think to ourselves, why would you scream? Why would you be so aberrant even? Why would you be so upset? Why would you be so angry? Why are you so frustrated? Why are you so volatile right now? And the flip side to that is that person, or you, or me, or whoever it is, could not actually be that volatile, could not be that deep, could not be that expressive, could not be that intense if they didn't feel safe. Now, what's associated with that safety, that feeling of security and stability within self, is a deep sense of caring, of knowing that they are held, to be able to do that. Now, what generally happens is that we don't allow ourselves to be fully present to that. When we feel that pain, especially men in particular, we retaliate. We either retract, become very passive, generally speaking, of course, or we attack, become defensive, and we lose an opportunity to just be. We lose an opportunity to just feel, to observe, to think, to hold the space for that person, to continue to let them know that they are safe and there is another way to express. So there's this flip side to someone treating us bad. Now, not for a moment am I suggesting that when someone treats us ill or someone disrespects us, that we are to not set healthy boundaries. We have to set healthy boundaries, and setting healthy boundaries is creating safe spaces for ourselves. And we can only create safe spaces for ourselves when we know ourselves, when we understand ourselves. And what happens in the world of man, in the world of the masculine, and for so much of society, we experience an unhealthy expression of the masculine, is that we retaliate as opposed to observing. Hey Michelle, how are you? Good timing on the comment and good timing on you being here. A wonderful woman once taught me, wonder who that is, that feminine expressive state, that feminine contrast, that feminine aspect of self draws in the information from the world, absorbs everything that one experiences. And the masculine generally wants to do something with that. And what we do as men in particular, and the masculine within us, is we're not very continent with that information. Especially men that are in their unhealthy posturing. I've been one of those men, and I'm sure I still slipstream into unhealthy posturing. We all, or most of us at least, do that. And we blur out there. We don't contain and retain that information. We don't know how to be healthy containers, essentially. To just sit with the information, just to sit with what we are experiencing. It was a beautiful lesson learned, beautiful teaching. Because when we sit with it, when I say sit is just us being with. sit is just us observing. Before we repeat or before we express what we have received. So before we give what we've received, we allow that receiving to sit with us, to be with us. And when we do that, we give it more context, we give it more color, vibrancy, life, understanding, connection, wisdom. We put context around it. And that is a deep honor to receive, Michelle. Thank you. So when we do this, we grow profoundly. Now, back to how we love or how we care, how we experience, how we express life, how we express sincere care, is that when we are feeling distressed, but we feel safe enough to express that distressed state that resides within us to another, we are inadvertently saying, you are safe enough for me to be the fullness of me. You are safe enough for me to be everything I need to be in this moment. And that's a gift, that's an honor. Hey Jada, how are you? Sky, how are you? Thank you for being here, ladies. Beautiful to have you here. That's an honor bestowed upon us to receive that. But what happens is the wounded inner self comes out and says, whoa, fuck this. Where's this attitude coming from? Why is this occurring right now? Why am I experiencing this pain? Why are you shouting at me? Why are you projecting upon me? Why are you screaming at me? Why are you hurting me? Why are you abusing me? And we take it personally. The reality is, unless we've done something directly wrong, and of course we can unconsciously be not so nice as well, but unless we've really done something malicious to hurt the other, the reality is that person is venting. That person is expressing their truth. It's a release valve. Kyle, how are you, brother? Nigel, welcome. Two beautiful men on board, strong men. Thank you for being here. And we can cut a little bit of slack here. We can do this. We have a capacity to do this. We have a capacity to be that type of human beings. Just to ease in, relax, release a little bit. Not take it personally. Take it as a gift. Take it as a compliment when someone screams at us. When someone is upset at us and they are venting and they are frustrated and they are out of character, perhaps, out of character. If we look a little bit deeper, if we go below the surface, we pull back those layers, what we're noticing is that these people are expressing themselves because they feel safe and connected to do so. They're expressing themselves because they feel they are allowed. What a gift that is to see someone in their extreme, to see someone in their most vulnerable and open, to see someone and experience someone in that way. Absolutely, Kyle. They trust us enough with their heart to show us their deepest desires, their deepest secrets, their various faces of who they are. They trust us enough to show us the fullness of who they are in that moment. But what we mainly do, what we usually do, is we take that information and we say, fuck you, stop, because you're upsetting me. We make it about ourselves, and we're very good at doing that. The ego self is very, very proficient at doing that because it picks up on the traumas and the cues that come with that expression being in its extreme, and we don't know what to do with it. But when we're continent with it, this is what I was alluding to or directly speaking to earlier, when we are continent to that, we receive that information and we just sit with it objectively in a neutral manner. We just observe it. We don't rush to react to it to make a judgment. We don't retaliate violently or aberrantly or in defense or attack based on some old implicit patterns that we've picked up when we were young during our developmental years and that we're running with now as adults. And we just hold and we pay attention. That becomes a different game. Gail says, what if that character becomes their main character? Well, then you need to make a choice around whether that serves you, and that comes down to healthy boundaries. Freo is the best, Michelle, you know that. That comes down to healthy boundaries. Can you set healthy boundaries for yourself? This isn't about allowing others to treat you in a way that is not conducive to your own health or what your needs are or your values. It's observing, and through that observation, you make a decision. If this person can't change their behavior that doesn't align with my values, then I have to set healthy boundaries around that. And what that looks like is completely up to the individual, of course. But what I'm getting at here is when two people care about each other deeply, when two people are in intimate contact with each other, whether it be romantic or whether it be deep friendship, and that person is expressing and it's triggering something within you, and they're simply venting, they're simply being there, they're simply expressing their frustrations, not necessarily directly to you. How we take that determines how that relationship evolves, and it determines how they heal, and it also determines the insight that we gain into our own being. It determines the insight that we gain into our own stuff. I really like that word stuff. Like I'm not a fan of vagities. Like I don't even know if that's a word actually, or being vague. I make up words. I think you all know that watch these videos regularly. But I think vaguity is a word. I don't really care anyway. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really one for being vague, but stuff. I like that word stuff because it encompasses so much of who we are. And there's so much complexity and so many layers to the human psyche, to the human self. But at the same time, we're really simple beings as well. So Kyle says, are you saying if they're venting in general or if it's directed at something we do? No, more so if they're venting in general. But even if they're commenting on something that we've done, like we have to take that into context with respect to what actions have we taken? What's the intentions of our actions? How have we come across? I had an interesting conversation, I was thinking it was yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember. It could have even been this morning. But the conversation centered around, I heard someone say, if someone is doing this, they're projecting. And it's them and they're just projecting. I'm like, yeah, maybe, potentially, yes, no doubt. But what about we look at the part that we play, yeah? So we need to look at the part that we play in every situation because we're relational social beings. We have to understand that it takes two to tango. That old saying, it takes two to tango, carries a lot of weight in the world. We're social relational beings. So we play a role in who we are and how we move through the world, and others play a role as well. And being discerning and deciphering what role we are playing, what role others are playing, and how that affects us and how that affects them, that's a journey in and of itself. And that's a process of exploration, and maybe even a process of elimination as well. So eliminating what's serving, eliminating what's not serving, eliminating what we do not align with anymore, and really understanding that. But again, that's a process of knowing self, of being on a journey of knowing self, respecting self, revering self enough to explore the intricacies of who we are, what our needs are, what our values are, who we choose to be with, what we really want from life. So the purpose of this particular video and the thought behind it is, like, I was listening to something and it was speaking about a child having a tantrum, a child really being out of character and having a tantrum and pushing those boundaries. And the only way a child would do that is if they felt safe enough to explore those boundaries. Adults are no different. Adults are definitely no different at all. We have that inner child within us. We have that curiosity. We have that explorative nature within us. We have that, let's push the boundaries, let's explore, let's vent, let's express, let's be, let's feel what our own boundaries are. Some of us do it unconsciously. Most of us do it unconsciously. Some of us do it consciously. The more conscious and aware we can be of the action that we take specifically to that, the more empowered we become, the more insight and wisdom we gain, and the more presence we gain as well within ourselves. So there's a question here. So 5 people, those who express indirectness and perhaps a bit of aggression can be really attractive to water folks. Water peeps are more likely to be laid back and take their flame easily, but we need to watch as water that we don't become too accommodating. Absolutely. So that's setting healthy boundaries. That's really understanding who you are as a person and how you choose to be treated and communicated to, and how you choose to communicate to the world as well. So there's so many layers to this, but let's start with knowing that just for a moment, instead of reacting to pain, instead of reacting to someone that is upsetting you, someone that is speaking ill, someone that is venting, someone that is frustrated, someone that is expressing behavior that is not the norm, let's just sit with that just for a moment. Let's be continent in that receiving. And before we then project out into the world, let's just take the power of pause. Let's breathe for a moment. There's so much conflict in the world because we don't understand ourselves and we don't understand others. There's so much that we don't physically see that we assume we're prima facie beings. If we just took a moment to just assume differently, to think differently, say, well, I wonder what this person's going through today. And hey, the fact that they can sort of really vent their expressions and vent their pain, and even though it's a little bit intense, the fact that they're doing that in front of me more than likely means they feel safe enough to do so. That's an honor, and I'm grateful to receive that, but I'm also going to set my boundaries around that. It's a balancing act, yeah. It's always a balancing act, always. That's what life is about. Absolutely, Sky, if we can be calm, it has a ripple effect. If we can be angry, it has a ripple effect. And that's why there's so much conflict, because we're meeting anger with anger. Don't get me wrong, sometimes, I mean, there's a, what's his name? Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber's an amazing philosopher. He's older these days. I think he's in his 70s, maybe 60s or 70s, but he's an amazing philosopher, an amazing writer, and has many different books. And, you know, he speaks to this moral conundrum that we face around, do we meet violence with violence? And, you know, most of the time the vast majority of the time we need to avoid that. But what if if lower level morality or violence is threatening the evolved rising way of being? How do we meet that violence when all that moral level understands is violence? Where do we meet that? And I'm not going to go into that today. That's a different conversation, but it's something to think about with respect to how we meet people where they're at, and how do we meet ourselves where we are at, and how can we communicate that clearly and effectively. I'm going to leave you there, beautiful people. August the 8th of the 8th, 2018, I commence my next Reclaim Your Kingdom immersive 3-month online journey with men. We meet every week, we connect every week. This is going to be epic. I just finished one a couple of weeks ago, and we've got a few men from that doing the same one again, just to be present to the men, to the camaraderie, to the community, teaching men how to be healthy, conscious, connected men, teaching men how to step into their healthy masculinity, teaching men, helping men, assisting men redefine what it means to be a contributing community member. So much to this. The link is above. Please check it out. Many, many blessings on your journey. Share this video if you think it carries value. If you feel it carries value to you, please share this video. Ask any questions you have in the comments, and I shall return that as soon as possible. Many blessings on your journey. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to this beautiful place. Fremantle is one of my favorite places in the world. I won't be here in a few days. I will be leaving for Europe, and in the US I'll be away for a few months, and then I shall be in Indonesia, another beautiful place as well. Very blessed to be here this evening though, and lots of love, beautiful people. Thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon.